Why is urban apologetics so important? Because you're gonna have some people out there that's gonna say, well, why don't we just say apologetics and just leave it like that?
Right.
Well, why just focus on urban apologetics? Why not just focus on apologetics as a whole? Like in let's include Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses and Seventh Day Adventists and people like that.
Well, even it's interesting, even within, we'll call it mainstream apologetics, even within that, there's people who specialize, right? So, for example, uh, Bill McKeever and Eric Johnson, I think they're two of the best current guys on Mormonism with the stuff they do. Aaron Shafawaloff as well, and Rob Bowman. These are people who do great work and have been doing it for a long time in regards to Mormon Christian interactions and whatnot. Then you look at Jehovah's Witnesses, you have the same thing. Ron Rhodes, for example, great work on that. And again, Rob Bowman, actually, I'm just mentioning a couple people. Robert Morey has a book, How to Answer Jehovah's Witnesses. And there's another one, David Reed, answering the verse by verse. Some of these are older resources, some of them are current, but specialization. And then with Roman Catholicism, you have people who focus on that. Islam, you have people who that's a key element, like Jay Smith, that they focus on. Okay, right? You have all this going, and it's been that way. And there's always a reason why any of these Christian brothers and sisters are involved. Like you have Alyssa Childress, I always mispronounce her name, who focuses on progressive so-called Christianity. Right, she does a great job. You have Stephen Bancards, people like that who focus on the New Age stuff, and it has to do with their background, and the list goes on and on. Right. Well, that's within mainstream apologetics, and they'll say, well, apologetics, but then you look, oftentimes they specialize in things. A lot of times, the more lay apologist has become like a generalist, because it's like, let's say they're like the guy, kind of like the answer guy at their local church or something like that, but they're a lay apologist. A lot of times they're like try to become like this generalist, because you're trying to answer as many questions as possible and stuff like that. So I get it, but I think even more and more within that realm, you start to see specialization where people are like, well, this is what I focus on. This is what I focus on. Because you realize someone can know apologetics well. Maybe they know good arguments for the evidence of the resurrection, for example. But that doesn't mean if you ask them about Hinduism, they really know much about Hinduism. Like I wouldn't claim to know a ton about Hinduism and be able to, like, I wouldn't claim that, right? I would say I don't know. I know this, but I don't know all this. So it's trying to specialize so there can be some specific information, because you realize it takes a lot to know the differences, say within Hebrew Israelism, these groups and these theologies and all that. It's a lot of effort, and it's difficult to do everything, and so that's a key area of specialization. For example, like me these days, is that, and I encourage that for everybody. It's like, regardless of if God calls you that, it's like, regardless of how important people view it or not, if you know it's important, if you know it's a need, to just be faithful in that. And then like Jay Warner says, what did he say? We don't need $100 apologists. We need $101 apologists. I think he says something like that. The idea, it's like, it's not just bringing in the big shot or something. It's all the local folks who get their stuff down in their context and that type of thing. And I agree with that. And again, that's part of what this book tries to help people do. I talk about how to get apologetics into your church in this book, for example. I talk about how to engage people evangelistically, yet with an apologetic mindset. So I hope more and more people do that and realize that, and don't have shame in specialization. Now, it's easy to become obsessed, or where you get off balance. But if you're in a good, healthy church, they'll help you, because you realize, like, Christianity is not just answering attacks from Kemet or something. It's raising your hands if that's what you can do, praying, praising triune God, listening to a sermon, being convicted and corrected and challenged, at helping someone who asks for help at your church, asking someone else for help when you need it, uh, teaching the kids if that needs to be done, greeting people at the door, even if maybe that's not your favorite thing, putting chairs away. I'm just saying that you realize, like, okay, there's a full spectrum of the Christian life and discipleship and walking community. It's not just sitting around answering attacks about, Jesus came from Serapis. But that's part of it, because then the guy at your church who works 60 hours a week says, man, they're saying Jesus is from Serapis. Will you help me out? Well, you can help them out, that kind of thing. So I just encourage people, Feel free to specialize, and don't get an attitude about it, but don't let anyone tell you otherwise. That's what you're supposed to do. To be frank, if that you're so specialized, go specialize. The Lord will figure out where to plug you in. So that's what I say to that.
Yeah, amen. And honestly, that's what kind of got me, you know, onto YouTube, because when I first started doing when I first started my YouTube channel, I was addressing a lot of things that was coming from the conscious community. We're talking about about 6 years ago, and there was just videos and content about all of these myths about white Jesus and the church and all of this stuff, and I was like, it just seems like that no one's really addressing some of these things that's going on. And I'm just like, some of these things are just easily dealt with because I'm like, I come from that background and I understand, what people are saying. And I've already looked into the stuff to know that a lot of this stuff is bogus. So I just started doing, videos here and there, and then I started getting people who will respond to some of my videos, and people started subscribing, and then people would ask me questions, and they would say, hey, when I hear this about the Council of Nicaea, can you do a video on that? Can you address this whole thing about Romulus and Serapis, and and all of that? Can you
Mhm.
address that? And it just kept going on and on and on until until I am where I am today. And I believe that it's all the work of the Lord, and it is
Mhm.
something that is needed, because just like you say, that there are some people who are heavy into apologetics, and I have had conversations with some prominent apologists, and apologists who are not black, and I've tried to pick their brain about some of the things that, or tried to inform them about some of the
Right.
some of the issues that we're running into in the black community. And I just had some people straight up say that, hey, I'm not interested in that. This is just another fringe group, or this is just a copycat of this. I mean, this is probably going to die out in a few years,
Right.
and they've said, hey, if I were you, I wouldn't even waste my time going into that,
Right.
and I'm just like, a couple of times I was offended by that, but I understood that there was a need in this particular realm, because you do have people out here who are swept off into these myths, and it's not always necessarily because they want to reject the Bible. I mean, I believe that that's what the intentions of a man's heart. We want to be what we're naturally enemies against God. You know what I'm saying? I
Mhm.
understand that aspect, but there are some people, just like you said earlier, that's all they know. They're not surrounded by some of the information that we've been surrounded by, or they don't know some of the people that's actually dealing with some of these things within their community. So even nowadays, whenever I have a conversation with someone who may not be a Christian, or who may be a professing Christian, but they hold on to the tenets of some sort of universalism, but the black man is God and black woman is God and all of this stuff. And it's like, I'll sit down and I have a conversation with them. Like, for instance, it's a guy that I work with, and actually, we were in Ohio. We were up there in Ohio, and this was like our first day working together, and we just started having a conversation, and he started, he kind of had some Hebrew Israelite talking points. So I asked him, I said, so
Mhm.
are you a Hebrew Israelite? It was like, no, I'm not a Hebrew Israelite. He was just like, at the barbershop, I get into it with these guys all the time. So I
Mhm.
started to pick his brain on stuff, and we had a conversation, and I was just clearing stuff up, and it went from him basically telling me his presuppositions about the church, to where he started asking me questions, and he's just like, okay, well, I know that you've been able to answer a few of these things in the past, so now can you go ahead and I got a question about this, like how do we get this, what's this book of Judith, and this and that, I kind of hear these things at the barbershop, like how would you address that and how would you approach that? And we started having a conversation about it, and again, it's urban apologetics is very necessary in this community, because once again, a lot of people, they just don't know, and then there are some people who are willing to actually sit down and have a conversation. Not everybody is just they just want to just bang against Christians. Some people are just truthfully ignorant. I mean, I'm a product of it. You know, I used to be ignorant, you know what I'm saying, to a lot of information,
Mm-hmm.
and I used to have my own presuppositions until I actually started talking to people and started having some of these conversations and say, hey, well, you know what? I mean, truth is truth. You know, the Council of Nicaea did not start
Right.
Christianity. You know, Constantine did not make up Jesus. So,
Right.
you know, yeah.